You're not going to be able to see this, and I can't actually say this really loud, but I'm going to say something right now. There's a moon outside my window, and it's gigantic.
That's that's fucking intense, right? What is up, everybody? It is very early in the morning on Monday morning here in New York City. I am in a very red room. This just happened. This is kind of, I like this. We may do this more often. Hello, everybody. This is The Rob Observation, episode 5. I'm your host, Master of Ceremonies, Darkside Rob, and it's good to see all of you here. I'll take these off for a little bit. No, I'm not. I'm going to put them back on because I hate the way my eyes look. I've got little tiny beady eyes and they drive me fucking crazy sometimes. But that's not the observation that I wanted to talk about. But I wanted to try this new setup out, see if maybe casting and recording these at night and using this setup would work. I'm really liking the way it looks right now. So we're going to go with it for a little bit because then I don't have to buy new lights just yet. I can get by with what I have. But what I did want to talk about on this observation real quick is something very interesting that happened over the last week, and I thought would be a cool thing to mention because the thing I wanted to talk about on this observation is the convention season. Now, this is a term that people in the video game press and the video game industry have been using for a couple of years now to essentially describe events that start in January and end in November, December of the season of video game conventions that starts with CES indirectly and then really officially kicks off with PAX in March. And the thing I want to talk about specifically with regards to the convention season is that there are a shitload of conventions throughout the year, both good and bad, and a lot of stuff in between. Now, my first video game convention that I ever went to was in 2009. I went to E3. And E3 then had just come off of a really tough year or 2 years of like changing venues, changing style. Who is it marketing itself to? How are people getting the information? Should we downsize? Should we grow up again? And it was one of these situations where you walked into E3 and it was like after they did the Santa Monica thing, they came back to LA and there was no more Kensha Hall anymore. Kensha Hall turned into a parking lot, but E3 had shifted, and yet it started picking itself back up again as this huge event. Now, since then, E3 is still relevant, but other games have shifted their scope. Tokyo Game Show is a lot smaller. Gamescom has sort of a different position. PAX has now become a quadruple event where there's 4 PAXs, East, West, Austin, and Melbourne. And in between those events, there's like 10 more conventions that just like make what I initially said as a convention season seem that much more real. It's that there is a collection of events that people go to throughout the year. And it just feels like a lot of the message keeps getting repeated over and over and over again. Now, here's the good and bad on both of those things. The way the video game viewer, the way the traditional the traditional Rock of Gibraltar video game player out there digests media on video games has shifted drastically in the last 10 years, even in the last 5 years. And a lot of events and a lot of things that go on around those events have shifted seismically to the point where it begs the question, how many events do you really need in a year to get all of that information out to you guys? A lot of people get their information from streamers. A lot of people get their information from YouTube. A lot of people get their information from third-party sources that either were at the event or basically like took the information from the event after the fact and said, well, here's my take on it. And the thing that I find as somebody who spent a couple of years like trying to go to every event, it's overkill, it's overload, it's overwhelming to the degree where most of the information it sort of becomes white noise after a while, where even I, as somebody who's like totally immerses himself in this year after year, looks at all this stuff on YouTube, on Twitch, on Facebook, on all these social media platforms and goes, I'm completely overwhelmed by all the damn things that I'm getting from these events. Is this all really necessary? Now, you can look at it 2 ways. One, I think video game events and video game coverage have a dual purpose and should exist. I think video game coverage is still very important. The kind of video game coverage that's separate from this whole social media platform and this whole YouTube and Twitch platform, where there's objective viewpoints that people are making and their job is to objectively look at every single thing that the video game industry is releasing. That's important. I also think that it is important for companies to go out and to basically sell people on whether or not their game is worthwhile or not. I think it's important to have a place where people can go, whether they're in retail, whether they're in journalism, whether they're in sales, marketing, or video game industry people, or just consumers. There's places for them to go where they can say, okay, so I have this amount to spend. Show me what you got. I would love to see it. I would love to try it. I would love to buy it, but you got to let me see it. And personally, I don't think there's anything better when it comes to marketing your game than somebody getting their hands on your game and trying it. You can always show somebody a video. You can always show somebody some content that has to do with what your game is, but games are an interactive medium and you have to get people in front of it. So I guess my dual point to the video game convention season is that it needs to exist. It needs to be here. There need to be shows. There need to be public places where these games come out and people get a chance to see what companies are doing, because otherwise you have no way of knowing whether a game's going to be any good or not, except if somebody does a demo or an early access or a beta or something like that. At the same time, I think it's getting harder and harder and harder for companies that release games to keep up with this cycle, as it is for people who go to these events to get to every event and see everything that's going on. Games have a certain window where they have to be developed and released. And now we have 10 shows in a year where video game companies have to come out, get something out there, and put it in front of the public, because we have PAX, we have E3, we have Gamescom, we have Tokyo Game Show, we have all of these different conventions. And I think it's like 4 PAXs now. And then they have their industry events as well. And they have GDC, and it's becoming a bigger chore to get to the conventions than it is to get the games out. And we're losing the focus of what should be going on, which is games should have time to develop for release, not for conventions. And I think the main point that I'll say to all of this is that back in the day when I was growing up, there was E3. There was only E3. And before that, there was CES. And CES was, when it was in its heyday as a video games and technology convention, that was a little bit before I had really gotten into video games. But when E3 showed up, it was like E3 was the Christmas for video gamers, where that show showed up every year, and the video game industry showed its best. And there was no other way to really see that stuff prior to like PAX, and also like the high definition internet, where you could see videos about what was going on and when it was going on and things like that. And the truth is that because E3 is not the landmark pinnacle of video game release news that it used to be anymore, that it's still its main focus, and which has always been its focused to one degree or another, has been retail and marketing and business, going in and seeing the business of video games. It has less of that focused collection of video game news, especially when everything around it is sort of leaking stuff, and stuff leaks before the show and after the show, and stuff happens at PAX and after PAX, and companies are selectively deciding whether E3 is or is not the time at which they want to put that information out. And more often than not, they're finding that E3 is not the best time to put some of the news out that they want to show. Some of it still is, but some of it comes before or after, and it's diluting the message of when stuff comes out and what to keep your eye on. And now you just have to keep your eye on everything that's happening when it comes to all of these conventions that are out there. So on the one hand, it's completely and utterly overwhelming and overkill and too much information, and you're just drowning in a sea of constant video game news that's being repeated from convention to convention, convention to convention, and it looks like it's new stuff, but you can't really tell anymore, because is it like what we saw a couple of weeks ago, or is it not, or is it's just like just stop, I can't, my brain. However, I think there's going to be a combination and a coalescing of cons over the next couple of years, and E3 and things like that are going to shift, because I think the number of conventions out there is equally as good as it is a bad thing, and as helpful as it is sometimes overwhelming to the common video gamer. The truth is that there may be too many conventions, but there's enough conventions for that one person that's near that one city, near the place that they live in. And I think that's the one place where I go, it's really good. It's important that there's a convention right around the corner where that awesome person who, you know, is neck deep in nerd culture, just fucking, you know, letting the awesomeness of the video game industry and pop culture and all that shit just wash over him or her. Like, having that outlet to go to and say, I'm part of this community is fantastic. And that's part of the thing that I love about this industry and love about video games, is that as crazy as it can seem for somebody like me, who's a, you know, granted, an obsessive, there's a part of this that is great for just the everyday video gamer, the everyday cosplayer, the everyday, you know, otaku or whatever it is, where he or she can go outside and go, I got to take off from this or that because my people who love video games, who love pop culture, who love movies, who love music, they're here at this building for this week only to enjoy this thing that I fucking love. And that's my major takeaway from all of this, is that while sometimes it can seem just like there's too much going on, there's just this sensory overload of the convention season, there is at its core a good reason for existing. Even if there's a bigger business part to all of it, it's that it's even E3 in its weird way, where they've been going, oh, should we have the public in on this thing? Even they have said there's a community around this that needs to be involved with this, because while it's a business, there's also this love for this, you know, medium that we call video games. And conventions are just an extension of it, and a great one that takes your personal passion in a local framework in you and the video game and actually brings you out into and around other people that love what you and I love. And that's the thing I always take away from any convention I go to, is that the people are awesome. The people are great. And I love hanging out and talking to and sharing experiences with people who love this stuff and love this industry. I think that's where I'm going to end this observation today. I'd love to know what you guys think about conventions. Do you think there are too many of them? Do you think they need to streamline some of them? Do you think they need to cut down on how many events there are throughout the year? Or do you think it's really perfect the way it is? And like, how would you like to see conventions evolve? And with that, I am going to call a end to this Robservation. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. If you've enjoyed what we're doing here on the Robservation and on the channel, I really hope you guys will consider clicking the like button. If you like what we're doing here on the channel overall, consider clicking that subscribe button. We're going to have more videos coming up in the week to come. Also, let me know if you like the new setup we have here. I think this is going to work. It seems pretty cool. I hope you guys like it, and hopefully this all looks pretty good. And I need the shades because otherwise I get blinded by the light over here. And please, by the way, I forgot to mention this last time, but if you guys have any comments, opinions, questions, theories, queries, or anything else you can think of regarding this topic or others you want to see me talk about on the Robservation, hit up the comment section down below. I would love to see what you guys have to say on this topic and respond to you guys in kind. Your comments mean the world to me, and honestly, this doesn't exist without you guys coming in, watching, liking, subscribing, and commenting. I can't believe I did that without taking a breath. So with that, I'm going to shut out this Robservation for this episode. This has been episode 5 of the Robservation. I'm your host, Master Samurai Darkside Rob. Thank you so much for watching, as always, and as you guys already know, the motto is keep playing those video games, stay safe, everybody, be good to each other. I will see you guys on the next Robservation cast, and until then, take care and peace out, friends. I would just like to mention to everybody that I don't wear shades inside all the time. It's just, fuck it, you know, it doesn't matter.